I'm Simon Dudley. I'm Chief Contrarian at Accession Events, and today I want to talk about the change in video conferencing in the last year or so. The market is in a position of total transformation, and I wanted to talk about a couple of products specifically which I think are at the vanguard of changing this market. You see, video conferencing has traditionally been a product or a technology that's been based around very expensive, dedicated technology in meeting rooms. And that was a necessary evil for most of the last 20 years or so, because video conferencing was technically a very hard thing to do. But because of the march of Moore's law, and because of the way that technology gets cheaper every year, these days, PCs, even a laptop like my Surface Pro here, is perfectly capable of doing high quality video conferencing. The problem has been, until now, that most of the capture devices, the cameras and microphone technologies, were really built around personal use. So, for example, Logitech did, as I'm sure almost everyone knows, a great range of video conferencing technologies for desktop devices as an augmentation to perhaps the little camera inside your laptop. But this technology until now has not really been that suitable for meeting room environments. However, that's changing, and because of the way that users are using the technology, the video conferencing market is changing as a result. You see, even a few years ago, most clients wanted a dedicated video conferencing system. They wanted one for their own internal use because that's where 99% of their calls went, and they needed something that had some standards capability. So, for example, a Cisco system could ring a Polycom system, or a Polycom system could ring a RadVision or a LifeSize or some other device. But what's happened is the market for video communications has really bifurcated or been transformed by a whole bunch of new technologies. Many of the newer players are not only are they adding things to video conferencing, but they've also created walled gardens. So, for example, a user using Microsoft Skype for Business can't use that technology on the old dedicated hardware technologies. Or if I have a WebEx solution, then I can't use that with a technology that's built for traditional video conferencing. So what's happened is a couple of factors have changed the market. The first one is that PCs are now powerful enough and cheap enough to run video conferencing in a very useful way. Secondly, the IT departments have lost control, to an extent at least, over what their users do. Previously, as said before, the IT department would pick a standard. Every user within the organization would either use that or not use anything. Today, because video conferencing has got into the supply chain, because it's exploding in use, people want different things at different times. So they may have a corporate standard. For example, they may use Zoom or Starleaf as their corporate standard within their organization. But they also want the capability to do a Google Hangout with a client one meeting and a Skype call another one, or a WebEx call or something else entirely. And as a result, those dedicated hardware video conferencing systems are really struggling, or in fact are failing, to keep up with that market dynamic. Much easier now to have a Windows 10 based technology in the meeting room and allow that technology to use whatever the user wants to. After all, according to Gartner, we're already in a world where over 35% of users buying technology aren't IT departments. They're departments, management departments, sales departments, marketing departments, and they use the tools they want to use. And the IT department most certainly does not want to be a gating factor when they invest in all this technology and then the users discover that they can't use it talking to their clients. So I think there needs to be a radical change in the market. Now, I'm going to show you some of this technology in action in a moment, but basically what we're talking about here is a fundamental change in the success criteria for the video conferencing market. In fact, it was what I would class as an accession event. So I want to show off two products here today. Let's start with the lower end one. This is the Conference Cam Connect from Logitech. A nice cylindrical device. It's got a battery in it. It's got speakers and microphone in here. So you simply plug the USB cable into your laptop and it turns this into a very nice little huddle system. The camera is superior to something like a C920, which is a camera that is often used on desktops for high quality video. It's got a wider angle lens. It's got a digital pan tilt zoom. It's not as good as an optical pan tilt zoom, but for a small meeting room, this is kind of cool. Battery lasts a couple of hours. It's got a little remote control. There's some ups and downs of this technology, and I'll go into that in a moment. We are not a panacea yet, but at a street price of something over $400, this is transformational for a lot of small meeting rooms. Instead of the multiple thousand that you would need for a dedicated device, this basically becomes a video and audio accelerator for small meeting rooms. I got a special red one, but they're normally a sort of a silvery colour. A pretty impressive bit of technology, and certainly changes the way that people can think about video deployments, because you can take it anywhere, and because at $400 it's very low cost. The other product I wanted to talk about today, and I'll show in a demo later on in the video, is the Conference Cam Group. And this is basically a bunch of wires, which I have left in the other room, which I'll show you shortly. There's the camera, which is a full pan tilt zoom with 10x optical camera. Nice piece of kit. Is it as well built as you know, a super high-end Sony device? No, probably not. Is it entirely suitable for most video conferencing applications? Yes. And one of the things you have to remember when talking about video is people will say, oh, but it's not as good a quality as my $50,000 room. Well, that may be the case, although frankly, the gap is closing briskly. But the real issue is, if you've got one or two $50,000 rooms, you've only got a couple of people to ring. With this sort of technology, street price for this Conference Cam Group, I understand, to be under $1,000. You're talking about a product that can be mass deployed. And if Netflix and Hulu is to indicate to us anything, it's that mass deployment matters an awful lot more than the ultimate nuance in quality. Not that I want to suggest that this stuff's low quality. It's certainly good enough for 99% of all users. And the most important thing is it's more flexible. The other thing with the Logitech Conference Cam Group is that you can buy the camera on its own, or you can have it with this, which is a nifty speakerphone and microphone array. Is the quality of this ultimately as good as some of the dedicated hardware? I would argue probably not. But it's pretty close, and I suspect for the majority of users it will be more than adequate. Other things to consider is I've got some software that works with it. You can, of course, run any desktop-based video conferencing application on your laptop, just simply come in and plug it in. Or Logitech is doing this system where they have an Intel NUC, and that has some interesting software on it that allows the room to be a dedicated room, and you simply choose the application you want to run. You could even run it as not even a video conferencing device, simply as a PC in a meeting room. Personally, I have some disquiet about that, because I think security implications may become a problem. Not many IT departments want devices that are plugged into the network, which are PCs that no one officially owns. So I think you're going to want to lock it down pretty tightly. I understand that the application they use can do that. I haven't gone through all the security implications, but it can be done. So, of course, the only other thing, as you'd expect, is a Logitech keyboard and mouse. So, is this solution as neat as a fully dedicated video conferencing solution? You know, you've got a keyboard and mouse, you've got a microphone array here. Most of the applications do not integrate things like pan tilt zoom at the far end and hang up and initiate calls from here into the applications yet. But my understanding is that's coming. It will certainly make it a lot neater once it does. You know, keyboards are a mixed blessing. Everyone knows how to use it. It's an entirely familiar user interface, user experience. And of course, all those folks who are used to using a technology at their desktop, which of course is increasingly common these days, if they're using, you know, Skype for Business at their desktop, they can walk into a meeting room either with their laptop or run the application on a PC or a NUC in the meeting room, and it's entirely familiar. Is it as neat as a remote control? No, probably not. Is familiarity more important than cool? Yes, I would argue it is. Most people are more afraid of public humiliation than they are of death, and they would rather either initiate a call with a solution before they get into the meeting room so that they know it's going to work, simply plug in these accelerators, or they can walk into a room and go, well, this is Windows on a big screen. Is that as neat as some of these other solutions? No, maybe not, but I'm familiar with it. I can practice with it at my desk. So in the second half of the video, I want to show you what some of the applications looks like. I genuinely think that Logitech's onto something here. This is not perfect. I'm not going to suggest that this is a panacea or a nirvana scenario, but it is this. It's the most flexible solution to video conferencing today. And I think the days of monolithic single solutions for clients are really over. I know there's plenty of these technologies sold today, but I think we're looking at what's going to become, over the next couple of years, the 800-pound gorilla in the video conferencing space. Because, of course, they're agnostic. You know, typical Logitech. We don't care what you use, as long as you use our technology at the end of the line. It's kind of, as a Swiss company, they've turned themselves into Switzerland for this. I think whether it's Skype for Business or Cisco Slack or Cisco Spark or Slack or any number of other applications, you can run them. And of course, the best thing from an IT department's point of view is they don't have to decide. They can invest in this technology now, and whatever the next application of choice for their users is, or applications of choice, because I think increasingly we're living in a world where there is no one answer, then this is going to be so much more scalable, so much less painful. And it's difficult to imagine a universe in which the next big application out there isn't going to have a PC-based app for it. So from an IT department's point of view, it's the risk-free option. So let me show you some of the software, and let me show you an installation and see what you think. There are two major ways of interacting with these cameras from Logitech. There's either the idea of bringing your own codec or bringing your own laptop to the meeting room and plugging that into the camera, whether that's the Conference Cam Connect or the Conference Cam Group, and away you go. I think that's a particularly interesting experience for the Conference Cam Connect because it's such a portable device. The other major way of doing it, and something that Logitech has partnered with a couple of companies, Intel being one of them, is to allow customers to put an Intel NUC into the meeting room and then load software onto that. Now, that also has two ways of doing it. You can either load the exact application you want onto it, whether that's, PEXIP or Starleaf or Zoom or BlueJeans. The other way of doing it is to use an application called Quick Launch. And Quick Launch allows you to have a kiosk-like front end for the user, which enables them to pick the application they want. They can either pick Zoom or PEXIP or any of those other applications, but they can also pick all the other applications that they may want to use in the room that aren't to do with video conferencing. And then in the middle, and you can see on this screenshot that I've brought up onto the screen here, you also have the ability to reset the room, to take it back to a basic format so that it logs out at the end of a session. Now, I suspect in many cases clients are going to want to keep the kiosk up for security reasons. You don't, after all, want PCs that are logged into networks without an identity on, and then simply allow the users to come in there and use the application they want to without having any login privileges of their own. So the meeting room won't have an identity of Bob Smith or of Simon Dudley. It'll have one of Meeting Room 7. And that makes the applications much easier to use. It helps from a security point of view, and it also enables the users simply to pick the application they want to for every single meeting. As we've discussed before, the real issue in the modern environment is the most flexible solution possible. IT departments don't want to get caught with monolithic solutions that may be out of date next year. And this sort of solution seems like an ideal scenario. Is it perfect? No. Is there some issues around security that a number of customers may have to consider? Yes. Is the quality as good as the $50,000 meeting room? No. But it's real close, and I think people need to look at this very closely. If this isn't the product of the future, this is most certainly the first step towards the product of the future. I haven't seen this bigger sea change in the market since high definition, which came out over 10 years ago. I think increasingly we're living in a world in which video communications is becoming ubiquitous. There are presently over 50 million rooms worldwide that should have video communications technology in that don't. So we're in a world of mass deployment. I think the idea of a flexible solution that allows users to have whatever applications they want to for that specific meeting, to come in and use it, whether it's technology that's embedded in the room or technology they turn up with and have an effective video and audio accelerator, is the future of this industry. I've been in video conferencing now for over 20 years. I've never been more excited about what the future was going to look like. And it's very different than how we thought the world would be now 10 years ago. I think it's an exciting time. So I do hope you enjoyed the show. I'd love some feedback. Please do get involved, and I hope to see you again soon.